Welcome everyone. So today we have a very exciting duo with me, father son. They have undergone a bike packing trip from Germany to India. So this was an unbelievable thing for me. Even I cannot think about someone can take such a long journey. In India, even a one-day journey looks very big for me. So they both are here just to share their experiences, how they feel along the way. So, Johannes, would you like to say something more about you to our audience?
Yeah, I'm retired. My name is Johannes Witte. I'm retired. I work for an American company in Germany, mainly on the technical side. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I worked in engineering and research and development for most of my career, and traveled quite often over to the States, to Houston, Texas. And now with 63, I retired, and I'm having a happy life now in retirement.
That's great. Yes, Christoph, would you like to say something to our audience?
Yes. So firstly, thank you very much for having us on your podcast. We're very much looking forward to speaking to you and telling you more about our journey during the next half an hour, 45 minutes. My name is Christoph. I'm the son of Johannes, and I used to work until earlier this year in fintech and financial technology. I was living in London, but I quit my job at the beginning of the year to embark on this trip with my father.
Great. So thank you so much, both of you. I am moving to my first question. The very first question that what inspired you to undertake this remarkable bike packing journey from Germany to India? And what has been the most profound experience along the way? So please share your experiences.
Okay, maybe I can start with why did we do this trip? I think, as I mentioned before, I flew over quite often to the States, and Christoph, of course, was quite often in India to meet his wife and to meet the family of his wife, and we have been there a couple of times on vacation as well. So we always thought you start in Germany or wherever, you go to the airport, start the journey, fly over in a couple of hours, 10, 12 hours, and then you are landing in a totally different country with totally different culture. And you often ask yourself, if you look down from the airplane, what is all happening in between there? So you never get any information on what is happening on the way to your destination. So we said at some point in time, we should take a different route and go slowly and look at everything that's on the way there to the totally different culture. That was mainly our first idea, to say, okay, what is the best way to go? You can go by car, but there you are quite isolated as well. You could walk, but that takes extremely long. So we thought the best way is to take the bike.
In India, even I can't think of it. It's 5 months is a very long time, very, very long time. 1 or 2 days, 2, 3 days, hardly a week, we can imagine, okay, it's 5 months traveling all the way. So for me, this is a very big thing. So I am coming to you, Christoph, with my next question. You have encountered diverse culture during the journey. Can you share a cultural tradition or interaction that left a lasting impression on you?
So, I mean, during our journey, we passed through many different countries, and most of these countries don't necessarily have a homogeneous culture. There's many different people in many of these countries living side by side. And so it's actually a bit difficult to choose that one country, that one culture that really left the most lasting impression on us. But I think one of the things that impressed me the most was the amazing hospitality that people displayed towards us throughout the entirety of Central Asia, really. So that started in Kazakhstan, or Kazakhstan as it's called in India, as I learned. all the way through to Kyrgyzstan and then also well into China. So I think it was really people in the middle of the desert stopping their car in front of you, making their little kids step out of the car and run towards us with a bottle of camel milk, people offering us a place to stay for the night, offering to invite us for, and oftentimes not even just offering, but actually inviting us for lunch, inviting us for dinner. So I think that was incredibly impressive, at times slightly overwhelming, because when it happens to you once or twice a day, it's an amazing, it makes you feel very welcome. When it happens for the 5th, 6th, 7th time, and people, because of their culture, don't necessarily take no for an answer, it does turn into a bit of a challenge, because every single time you need to tell people over and over and over again, we actually need to continue with our cycle ride. And even though we really appreciate the gesture, and we would love to actually accept your offer, we also have to reach India at some point. So thank you very, very much. But I think that was one of the experiences that really left a very deep impression on me, because I think we had never really experienced such an amazing hospitality as in Central Asia.
It changes your outlook about other cultures, actually, when you receive such a hospitality.
It did. And I think many of these countries I had never been to previously. And I also didn't really have any real understanding what these countries were all about, what the history was of these countries, what culture these countries were or are having. And so I think, so just the very act of cycling through these countries already massively impacted my experience and my view on these countries and on these regions in the world. But then it was also very positively impacted by that amazing hospitality that both of us got to experience.
So during the 5-month journey, you never stayed in a hotel? Always you were staying with someone in someone's house, or sometime you stayed in hotel too?
It was a mix of everything, really. So in the middle of the desert, obviously, there's no hotel, but then typically there's also no house to stay at. And so we had a tent with us that we would sleep in during these nights.
Oh.
Am I back?
Yeah, we can hear you. You can speak.
Oh, he's gone.
Oh. So Johannes, till the time we can speak. So
I think what really impressed me as well, as Christoph said, we were in hotels, sometimes we were at a private guest house, and sometimes we were in the middle of the desert. And if you are in the middle of the desert, for me, when I was young, I think it was the last time that I, for example, saw in that clarity all the stars and the Milky Way. You could clearly see the Milky Way from one end to the other, and was in Sternschnuppen.
Shooting stars.
Yeah, shooting stars in the middle of the night. It was just the time where all the shooting stars were coming down. So we were really lying in the tent, could look into the sky and saw the Milky Way and the shooting stars there. That was really amazing.
Yes. So sorry, just very quickly coming back to your question. I'm sorry, the connection just got cut. So obviously in the middle of the desert, you can't really stay at anyone's place, and that's what my dad just described. We did stay at a couple of houses. So some of those houses we just found online, and we reached out to the owners and asked if we could stay there. We did stay at hotels, especially in larger cities. I think one experience that really, once again, left quite a lasting impression on us was we were in Kazakhstan in the desert, and the wind had turned, and we also had to cycle a bit of a detour because the route that we had originally planned to follow turned out to not be actually cyclable. So various cars stopped us and told us that we couldn't cycle that way, that the road was actually too bumpy, and that we had to take a different route. And so we didn't make it to the destination that we had planned to reach that day. And we were sort of stuck in a massive oil field. So there were lots of oil pumps all around. So we couldn't really walk into the field either and set up our tent. And so we reached this very small town in the middle of the desert, and we started asking around because we couldn't find a hotel. And at some point, people advised us to just walk over to the mosque, sit down in front of it, and wait. And they would make some calls, and someone would pick us up. And eventually, the imam actually showed up, led us into the mosque, and we slept in one of the prayer rooms. Which, yeah, I think that was probably one of those nights where you ended up staying overnight at a place that you had never dreamt of in the morning that you'd be staying for the night in the evening.
So all through this 5 months time, all through your journey, was there any bad experience or any accident with you people?
We had one minor accident that was entirely on me, actually, in Tibet. So I was looking at my phone because I was in touch with our guide, and he had just sent us the location where he wanted to meet up with us. And my dad stopped to take a photo, and I crashed into him. But our bikes are really robust, so nothing happened to the bikes, luckily. And my dad actually didn't fall. I fell off the bike onto the road, but luckily also nothing really happened to either one of us. So in that regard, we were actually quite fortunate. And we were generally quite fortunate that we only had this one minor accident. I think the other thing was we stopped in the desert in Kazakhstan, and there were two teenagers, and they decided to steal my helmet while we were inside for lunch. But luckily, I knew someone someone from Kazakhstan who we then called, and she spoke to the owner. And we also put a bit of pressure on the restaurant owner that because it was obvious that the boys were friends with his son, that he would call the boys back so that they would return the helmet, which they did. So in the end, everything turned out to be all right, and we could continue with our journey safe and sound.
Great.
But beside of that, I think we were extremely lucky that nothing happened. No accident with motorbikes.
That is the God's blessing, actually. Otherwise, it's the 5 month is a long period, actually, and you are moving through the unknown terrains, actually. You have not been to those countries, actually, as you're traveling all the way. So moving to my third question, what were the biggest challenge you faced during the journey, such as the landslide at the Chinese-Nepali border, and how did you overcome them?
I think for me, the most challenging was, first of all, it started off that the temperature in Eastern Europe was extremely high. There was a heat wave in Europe, so we were cycling at around 40 degrees C just to start with. So at the beginning, that was quite challenging, but then I think it worked out okay. In the desert, the endless desert, where also a lot of heat and extreme dry air. So in those days, I think we drank up to 7-8 liters per day per person. So that was really, we had to carry a lot of that weight with us, a lot of water with us to survive in the desert. That were the beginning or in the first half, and then of course the extreme high altitude in the Himalaya. Yeah, we were cycling at above 5,000 meters, 5,200 meters, and you start to breathe a little faster and a little heavier. I think that was most challenging for us. And then, of course, when we wanted to cross the border to Nepal, this landslide there, that the streets or the complete, I think the street at the mountain was completely washed away. So we always hoped that this would be fixed before we came there, but then we heard that it would take at least a couple of weeks, if not months, to restore all of that. So we had to go back to Lhasa and fly to Kathmandu. It was the only chance to continue.
Yeah, we just got within 120-kilometer reach of Kathmandu, and then we had to turn around and then actually fly to cover or to bridge that 120-kilometer gap that we were missing.
Really a big challenge. So, Christoph, with your plan to move to Asia to be with your Indian wife, how, is your wife Indian?
Excuse me, can you repeat that question?
Yeah. So, with your plan to move to Asia to be with your Indian wife, how has this journey deepened your understanding of Indo-German connections and cultural integration?
Well, I mean, a lot of the countries and cultures that we traversed and landscapes that we traversed, obviously in between, don't necessarily have a direct connection to Germany or to India, but they are what connects both of these cultures. Like that's the connection, like that's the worldly connection between these cultures. So that was interesting to experience. I think for me personally, I've been with my now wife, back then partner, girlfriend, for over 10 years. So I've obviously been to India a lot, and I've had a lot of exposure to the country, to the culture, to the people. But I think what I did learn about, and maybe not Indo-German connections, but about India, and what was a unique experience for me is obviously cycling through the north of India. So sort of trailing the border between Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh, then crossing Haryana, visiting Punjab, and then cycling down all the way to Delhi, and stopping on the way in all these villages and small towns that I think otherwise you would never really visit, and seeing a side of the country that I had not seen before and that I thought was incredibly interesting. And also because we were traveling by bicycle, you could also slowly see how that culture was changing as you continued with your journey. And I think that just gave me a lot deeper much deeper and richer understanding of what India is all about as a country.
How long have you been in India?
How long have I been in India in total?
Yeah.
Many months. I wouldn't be able to tell you how long exactly, but by now it's been many, many months.
And what about Indian food?
On this journey was 2 to 3 weeks in total that we were there.
What about the Indian food? Do you like it?
Yes, it grew on me. I have to admit that initially I wasn't the biggest fan of Indian food, but it's grown on me. I do like it quite a bit by now, especially Punjabi food probably is my personal favorite.
Because the Indian food is very spicy and the people from other culture don't like it. Actually.
That is true. And I always have to remind people when I order food, I'm just the Gora. My stomach is sensitive. Please bear that in mind when you prepare my food. But then typically it works out.
And what about sweets? Do you eat sweets?
We did eat sweets. My personal favorite is Kaju Katli. I think one of the experiences also in India that was a really nice experience to me personally was when we were cycling through Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh. As I said, like we were traveling through regions that are not particularly well visited by foreign tourists. And so needless to say that we did stick out, and that we did draw a bit of quite a bit of attention. And so you had a lot of, especially young teenagers, driving up to us on their motorcycles and then accompanying us for part of the way and asking us where we're from, where we're going, and why we're going by bicycle and not just flying by plane. I think that is also a big cultural difference, as you initially also stated. Cycling in India and cycling in Europe, I think the approach to this activity is a very different one. But we were in India, so we entered India. I think it was either on the day of Diwali or one day after it had started, and there were two boys who were actually following us for quite some time, talking to us for, I'd say, somewhere between 5 to 10 kilometers or so. And eventually we reached a gas station where their friends were waiting, and we said our goodbyes and we continued with our journey. And then about 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, they caught up with us again. And I was a bit surprised, what do they want? And they were with a friend who actually then got off his motorcycle, walked over to us and gave us a box of, I think it was barfi. It was like, Happy Diwali. We just wanted to share these sweets with you, which I thought was an incredibly nice gesture.
Because in India, cycling such a long distance, I think even the cyclists don't dream of. They will cycle a few kilometers, few miles. Even if someone goes 1,000 kilometers with by car or something, this is a big thing. Why they are going by car? They have a train.
Yes. Yeah, I think in Europe, cycling is a much more accepted mode of transportation, just for short to medium distances. And then it's also quite an accepted leisure activity. But then you also have the infrastructure, you have bicycle paths, all of this. And I would say probably more awareness among other traffic participants, car drivers and so on and so forth. But I have to say that I was very positively impressed when we reached Chandigarh, because Chandigarh does actually have bicycle paths. So that was actually quite nice, because we could sort of avoid having to cycle directly in all the traffic.
So I'm coming to my last question. What message or advice would you like to share with the young Indians about the transformative power of travel and embracing different cultures? So this is the gist of the podcast, because you experience a lot all through the journey. This is a long journey and so many different cultures and something. And people in India are not very much interested in traveling and interacting with other cultures. So what is your message? What lesson would you like to give them?
I think it's the best way for worldwide understanding. That's about that's what you could say. It's really, I think it's the only way. Talking to other people is the only way to really get to understand them and get their feeling. And I think this gives everybody a lot of trust and understanding of each other. So I would appreciate, and I would really. I'm missing English words now. I could say it in German. What I would really encourage everybody to travel also outside their own country, because that's where you really get an understanding of people in the world.
And I would probably add to that, I would say, you're not just learning about other people and their cultures, you're also learning a lot about yourself and your own culture. Because I think growing up in a particular cultural context, you accept a lot of things as normal or as the standard. And then all of a sudden you travel to different countries and you're confronted with very different ways of thinking, and a very different approach to life, just to life, and a very different outlook on how things are. And I think that also gives you it gives you an opportunity to take a step back and to reflect also on your own on your own culture and on your own role that you play in the world, and how you interact with others. And so I think that is as enriching as it is to yourself personally as it is to learn about other people and how they're thinking, is to understand how you yourself are thinking and what your preconceptions are and what your outlook is on the world. But then may I add one thing? I think India in itself is already so diverse. I think for young Indians, I mean, it is obviously enriching to travel outside of India, but I think already traveling within India can be an incredibly enriching experience.
Go from one corner, not one corner to another. Even you just cross one state, you will find everything changes. Language changes,
Exactly.
their dress will change, their food will change, everything will change.
Yeah.
But Indians are same in their thinking actually, the way they think, because this is the one religion actually that binds people. So they think alike. So that's the thing. But during the 5 months time, you must be able to taste various kinds of food actually, all through the way.
Yes. And I leave it to my dad to respond diplomatically.
There's good food in the world and there's better food in the world. I think I really like Indian food the most. Beside of course of German and European food, I like Indian food the most. In the Stan countries and also in Tibet, it's quite different. So you need to you have to adjust yourself to a different kind of taste and different kind of food.
But what about the communication? Ever you felt any problem in communicating with the people, with other people? Because everyone doesn't know English.
Sure. I think so. If you're traveling in Europe, most of the people there speak English, or at least you're able to find someone who speaks a couple of words of English at least. I think we also benefited of the fact that I speak some Italian and Spanish, especially in Romania, where it's also a Roman language. And so even though I didn't speak the language that these people were speaking, there were still a lot of words that were very similar, and you could sort of work your way around it. I think in other countries we have apps on our phones that are, so you can just record what you're saying and it automatically translates it. So that was quite helpful. And sometimes it's just you pick up on words in a country, like the most relevant words. At some point, you understand what they are. And then there's also a lot of pointing and pantomime involved. But typically, it wasn't too much of a problem. I think the Central Asia was a bit tricky because historically speaking, they were part of the Soviet Union. So a lot of people spoke Russian really well. But so the lingua franca in these countries, at least that was my experience, was Russian as opposed to English. And then obviously in China, it's Chinese what people speak. And I think China was the country where we probably met the least people who were able to speak English with us. We met a couple, but there weren't that many. But then China is there's a very high tech affinity in that country. So people are probably way ahead in front of us in terms of tech adoption. And so working with translation apps was really not a problem.
Thank you so much, John and Christoph. It was a really very highly motivating to talk to you people actually. We have only 1 minute of time left. So would you like to give some final message to our audience? Then we'll wrap up.
A final message. I think I said it before, travel, explore the world, and it will teach you a lot about other people and their culture, but it will also teach you just as much about yourself and your own culture.
Thank you.
keep your ears and eyes open.
Yes.
Thank you, Johannes and Christoph. It was nice talking to you. And I'm looking forward. I'll come to you again if I have some relevant topic. Then I'll be speaking to people. So, guys, if you like the video, please like and share the video and share with your friends and family. I'll be forwarding the video to you also, Johannes, by email. Thank you. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you very much for your